Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Really excited for today's video, which is going to be a deep dive into some 2025 NBA Draft stock updates. Of course, as the NBA Draft Combine has unraveled and played out, we've gotten more information. We've gotten to see who has stepped up and who hasn't on the big stage in front of all 30 NBA teams, executives, GMs, owners, all of that and more. Of course, we're still going to be going throughout the process here in the off season for a lot of teams with private workouts and draft evals in that way still, but I do think now is a great time, especially after some of those combine scrimmages, to talk through some of the big risers, fallers, and players who did help maintain their stock a bit as well. So in today's video preview, we are going to look at a few big risers, we're going to look at some notable stock helpers, and a couple fallers. It's a very well built out video here that I hope will give you a good idea of what's been going on this week if you haven't been able to keep up. And if you have, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who did I not mention in this video that you thought was either a big riser or a notable faller? I always read all of those comments. And let's get into big riser number one for me. It was Maxime Raynaud, someone who I highlighted leading up to this week, someone who I thought had a very good chance of standing out with his great size and length, specifically at the center spot, someone who is a true 7-footer, measured in quite well at the combine, and then built on that throughout the course of the week. Shot well during drills. Obviously, one of the biggest areas of growth for him from his first 3 years at Stanford to his senior season was not only the three-point shot in terms of hitting them, making them, but really elevating that volume. His three-point attempt rate skyrocketed in his fourth college basketball season, and I think that gives a lot of hope to anyone trying to picture Maxime Raynaud playing at the next level in the NBA. Had he been predominantly just an inside big man, I don't know if he's going to stand out statistically in the way that he has from this most recent season with the Cardinal. And then I also think when it comes to Raynaud, this process where he showed out big time in the first combine game and really set himself apart from there, shutting it down for the week. And I think he's done enough to really cement himself as a very likely top 35 pick. Now, I would want to say for sure first round. Sometimes things don't go the way you'd imagine. A prospect might fall. Even right now, he could be getting promises from teams in the mid to late 20s saying, hey, if you're on the board, we're going to take you. But it takes one or two guys sliding down the board to drastically change what teams expected to happen, who was available for them. So even when you are getting guarantees and promises, you don't always have those guarantees and promises held onto by teams and executives. And that is a bit unfair, of course. But I do think Raynaud, whether he's getting those first round promises or not, has definitely set himself up to be a top 35 pick, very possibly a top 30 pick. This draft has a lot of quality players in that 18 to 38, 18 to 45 range this year that has a lot of upside bets, whether it's I'm not talking like star upside. I'm talking about upside into being a quality role player, upside into being a starting caliber player, maybe as a fifth starter for teams. There's a bunch of different guys who kind of check small boxes, and I think Maxime Raynaud does a bit of everything for a team. He can protect the rim a bit. He can guard out in space. He's pretty mobile and athletic for his size. He's not going to be the best defensive prospect ever, but he definitely can move his feet a bit. And then he gets out and scores in transition, which is pretty unique for a 7-footer. He can step out behind the three-point line, knock down shots, has a little bit of playmaking feel. And I think the Combine specifically was a great opportunity for him to showcase a lot of that talent. I think he maximized the week for himself, and he is my first big riser in today's video. Looking at a second big riser is another player I highlighted coming into the week as a potential winner of the Combine, and it is Hansen. Measured in very, very well and was extremely productive in the CBA regular season, where he ranked in the 90th plus percentile in blocks, points, rebounds, was just an absolute beast playing over in China. And I think for Hansen specifically, someone who is still quite young and has a bunch of interesting skills to work with. Think about his back to the basket game. We got to see that during the Combine in the scrimmages where Hansen was able to get down low, put in a little bit of post work and score. And I think translating that to the NBA, it's really about attacking mismatches. If Hansen goes and sets a screen and the other team switches, hey, you can feed him the ball and look to generate advantage that way. Specifically, one of the best ways to generate advantage in NBA basketball is feeding the low post in order to draw double teams, in order to draw flash doubles, in order to draw nail help or low man help if it's from the weak side. I think there's a lot of ways to create advantage in the league. Obviously, some of that comes from ball screen, some of that comes from set play, some of that comes from drive and kick basketball. At the end of the day, Hansen Yang can be an advantage generator for you if you're committed to actually feeding him the ball in the post. Something he does very, very well is scoring from there, and I think for his developmental pathway, it would rely on him growing more as a passer, but he did showcase some really high-level playmaking tools and skills and some great passing instincts in the combine scrimmages as well. Hansen Yang also stepped out behind the three-point line, knocked down a three in one of the combine scrimmages. Now, I do think for him, could have been an even bigger riser if he shot a little bit better during the combine drills itself, but all in all, Hansen Yang showcased a lot of that skill set. I highlighted him before the week because of his combination of skill and size and how that combination together is quite rare and very fun to work with for an NBA team. So I do think Hansen Yang really stood out in a big way. I think solidified a lot of the people who are positive on him. And then also some of the doubters, I think he might have turned kind of a new leaf with some of them as well. So a lot of credit to Hansen Yang. Worked really, really hard coming into this week to set himself up well. And I think he tested quite well and really played well in those combine scrimmages, which at the end of the day, remember, we're not drafting track athletes, we're drafting basketball players. Hansen Yang is definitely skilled enough to be a professional basketball player. We'll see if he can catch on in the NBA and what ultimately his opportunity looks like in the league. But I do think he stood out in a big way this week. Moving on to my big riser number 3. This is not a surprise here. Cedric Coward, the Washington State product who only played 6 games because of a shoulder injury, ultimately had his season, his junior season cut short very significantly. Is set to transfer to Duke, but that might never come to fruition because of how well he performed this week. Measured in with a over 7'2" wingspan as a 6'5" player without shoes on. So you're thinking when he's actually on the basketball court playing with shoes, he's going to be around 6'6.5", 6'7"-ish. That's a very sizable wing player, someone who shot over 40% from 3 this past year, albeit again in very low samples, just 6 games, was extremely productive and efficient for Washington State. And I think there was a lot of intrigue this week around Cedric Coward. A lot of people kind of looking at him as a potential riser, looking at him as someone who could really help himself by performing well this week. And he did that. Measured in great, shot the ball really well during the combine drills. I think all things considered for Cedric Coward, he has set himself up to be a first-round pick. Obviously, I'm very optimistic for guys like Maxime Raynaud, Hansen Yang. I think Cedric Coward very possibly the biggest winner of the week in terms of his overall view and perspective from those in the league, because I think right now teams are going to be saying, hey, if we want to get him, we can't wait till pick 27. We might have to move up to get him at 22. Or, hey, if we want him, a team might just grab him at 18, 19, maybe at 17 even. Maybe Minnesota would look at Cedric Coward and have some interest. I think there's a ton of teams that would really strongly consider drafting him maybe 5, 6, 7 spots ahead of where they were thinking a week ago. And that is, again, a testament to how much he helped his draft stock this week. And I think Cedric Coward will not be returning to college basketball ever again. Now we get into a couple of guys who just flat out helped their stock a bit, and I just wanted to focus on 2 older guards. Ryan Nembhard, someone who came up through the G League Elite Camp. I was shocked he wasn't just an immediate NBA Draft Combine invite to begin with. I thought Ryan Nembhard definitely was a player who should be on the radar of NBA teams as just a flat-out Combine guy, someone who would just flat-out be valuable. He was on, of course, Maxime Raynaud's scrimmage teams. I think really helped Maxime Raynaud, especially in that first scrimmage where Raynaud got going early, scored the ball quite well. I think that showcased the value of Ryan Nembhard as a playmaker, creator. I do think Ryan Nembhard will be drafted this year. I think he will be a second-round pick, and I think could be a very valuable pickup for a team, and I think he really helped his stock this week. I don't think he completely changed the landscape of his draft projection. I don't think he had quite as impactful of a week as someone like Cedric Coward or Maxime Raynaud, for example, but I do think all things considered Ryan Nembhard played quite well. And then Mark Sears, a player you guys know I've been high on this entire cycle. He showcased to everybody what I've believed for a while now, that he's a very skilled, talented player who fits my draft philosophy of dribble, pass, shoot. Mark Sears can flat out ball, he can play, he can shoot the basketball, and he showcased that in the NBA Draft Combine shooting drills, where he went 26 of 30 off the dribble, 19 of 25 in spot up, 16 of 25 on the three-point star drill, which is pretty solid, 25 of 27 on the three-point side shooting drill, which was tied for the best in the entire combine. And then he also shot 10 out of 10 at the free throw line. So he was just flat out brilliant in the shooting drills. I think really helped himself in that regard. Obviously didn't measure in huge, but he will be a true 6-foot guard with shoes on, measuring in about 5'10.5". So if you're looking at Mark Sears as a prospect, you're saying, okay, he is small, but he's not terribly small. It's not like he's 5'9" without shoes on, right? He's a near 6-footer without shoes. He's someone where as soon as he's got shoes on, he's going to play every single minute of his NBA career with shoes on, I guarantee it. Like, Mark Sears is going to be a good basketball player. He's talented, skilled. In the combines, he showcased his ability to handle ball pressure, bring the ball up the court, initiate offense, run pick and roll. Pretty much everything Mark Sears did at Alabama for the last couple of years, he did at the combine as well. And I was not shocked at all by this, and I do think he helped his stock pretty significantly within league circles. Now we look at my first faller, and it is Johni Broome. Now, hard to say he had much room to fall after that vertical testing. Pretty poor week from him from a testing perspective, and I do think this is one of the issues with the NBA Combine in general. Again, are we drafting basketball players or track and field athletes? We're not asking Johni Broome to do the high jump. Now, obviously physical gifts, tools, traits, all of that stuff does matter on the basketball court. It can be the difference in getting a rebound and not. It can be the difference in blocking a shot or not. It can be the difference in having an effective closeout or not. There is a lot of value for functional athletic tools. Johni Broome is a good basketball player. He doesn't have a lot of those athletic gifts, and I think we saw that this week. Johni Broome, I do think, was one of the big losers of the overall combine, despite being a great college basketball player, someone who was in the running for AP Player of the Year, right behind the soon-to-be first overall pick, Cooper Flagg. While Johni Broome was really impactful for Auburn this past year, again, really dominant across the board, led Auburn a long way in the NCAA tournament as well. Ultimately, that stuff gets forgotten and overlooked at the combine here, because now you're trying to look at guys' physical tools, measuring their height, weight, wingspan, and you're not measuring their heart or actual skill too much. And I think with that in mind, I still think Johni Broome is someone who could return some value as a second-round pick this year, but I do not think this week helped his draft stock at all. And I think that's really, just the kind of the sad reality with the way that the NBA Draft Combine goes, all things considered. Staying on the topic of Auburn, my second faller here is Tahaad Pettiford, who measured in just a hair above 6 foot flat at the NBA Combine and had some up and down performances and showings. I don't think he shot the ball extremely well in the Combine drills. Didn't shoot it terribly though either. I think that was one of the big things for him coming in, is if he shot the ball really well in the Combine drills, he could impress people and ultimately even have his name called in the top 35, top 40-ish in this year's draft. I just don't really think that happened this week. And then I also, with Tahaad Pettiford, think that the up and down performances in the Combine scrimmages didn't help him either. Specifically his second scrimmage, where he struggled mightily from the field, just shot about 24-25% from the floor in his second scrimmage. And I think, all things considered for Pettiford, while the draft might still be calling his name, while there's still a chance that he could go through these workouts and ultimately be comfortable with hearing his name called, I think the reality here, especially for younger players like Tahaad Pettiford is coming out of college here, with the NIL money that he can make returning to school, playing more college basketball, it really does not make sense for him to come out for this year's NBA draft. He's a talented player. He had a very fun college season this past year. I think going back to school is the right decision for Tahaad Pettiford. And we just saw another former high recruit freshman guard in Boogie Fland withdraw from the 2025 NBA draft. I think Tahaad Pettiford is another guy. Had Boogie Fland not withdrew, I probably would have had him on this list as well. For Pettiford, I do think withdrawing, deciding to go back to school would be the right decision. I don't think he mightily helped his draft stock, and I think he was a player who really did need to help it coming into this week. Just flat out did not happen, in my opinion. I think within league circles, within what teams are talking about, and what they're internally feeling, I just don't see Tahaad Pettiford really warranting a top 35, top 40-ish pick at this point. And as a result, I do think he is someone whose draft stock fell a little bit this week, given how the combine played out. I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, really hope you did enjoy. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who was a riser? Who was a faller? Let me hear your thoughts, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.